speaker, which is Mark Carpenter, presenting on the topic, Publishing for Lasting Impact. Mark is the chairman and CEO of Editora Mundo Cristão in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is a Christian book publishing house specializing in Bible translation, development of local authors, and distribution through both Christian and general markets. Mark was formerly an editor at Tyndale House in the USA. Mark was the founding president of the Brazilian Association of Christian Publishers. Mark has served on MAI's international board, including 6 years as the board chair, and he is a member of the editorial board of the Publishing Research Quarterly in New York. Mark is a writer, an editor, and a publisher. He has led numerous international training sessions on leadership, writing, and the editorial process. I mentioned last night that one of the benefits of coming to LittWorld is that you can meet people who can become lifelong friends. And for me, Mark is one of those people. Very grateful to you, Mark, and I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation now. Let's welcome Mark Carpenter.
Good morning. It's a privilege to be here, and I know that each of you represents a unique story in Christian publishing. As I look around at a number of your faces, I'm inspired about the things that you've been able to do, the things you're attempting to do, the things that you've been successful in having done. And I'm honored to share some insights from our own journey at Editora Mundo Cristão with you here this morning. It's now been long enough to determine that books aren't going away. They're not going to disappear in the same way that LPs, CDs, VHSs, DVDs, and other physical media and platforms have virtually disappeared. Not only are books not going away, but in many major markets, book sales continue to grow. The growth is sometimes slight, and the market share between print books, e-books, and audiobooks is shifting, but books aren't going anywhere. At the recent Frankfurt Book Fair, Simon & Schuster CEO Jonathan Karp spoke of the amazing resilience of the physical book. Books have survived all existential threats so far, ever since Gutenberg invented what we have in our hands today. They have survived as existential threats. They continue to set the agenda for what society discusses and decides. They continue to inspire and educate. Books continue to feed other media. But books do have to compete for people's attention in an increasingly crowded and noisy environment. There's still only 24 hours in a day, and there are many, many other options today vying for that time than there were even 10 or 15 years ago. But nothing seems poised to take the place of books in the basic functions that they fulfill and in the way that they can so deeply engage a reader's focus. The basic print book is a very simple technology. As an artifact, it's at its lowest and simplest expression, like a frying pan or a pair of scissors. There's no way to reduce the print book to anything lower than it actually is today. And this simplicity, I think, is what enables its longevity. Publishing for lasting impact begins with the resilience of this platform, but the success of any particular book depends entirely on how we conceive it, how we create it, how we market it, how we manage the many structures that undergird it. What threatens us as publishers is not the potential weaknesses of this artifact, it's our shortcomings in the quality of our planning, the quality of our execution, our ability to become protagonists in the marketplace, our ability to see into the future, and our ability to attract and keep our most talented employees. How long have you been publishing? How long have each of you been involved in what you're doing today? How are you surviving or even thriving today? How do you expect to endure and ensure lasting impact? The theme of this LittWorld has compelled us to reflect about this. Let me begin with what for us is a surprising story from just this past year in Brazil. After decades of publishing primarily theological and Christian living books, we decided to launch a new line of young adult fiction. Now, I'm an English major, I love fiction, I've tried publishing it for many, many years, and it's never worked out. But just this last year, we decided to launch a new line of young adult fiction, and this decision wasn't made lightly. It came from carefully listening to our readers and observing market trends across the publishing industry in Brazil. So we published a book called Corajosas, which literally means the brave women. It was a book of fiction written by 4 young women about traditional fairy tale princesses who happen to be Brazilian girls living in contemporary Brazil. Within 12 months, this new genre became one of our top-selling categories, second only to Bible sales, and surpassing even our most established theological works. And our sales in this category have grown over 400% over the last 12 months, and not just because of one title, but in several titles. Why do I start with this story? Because it illustrates a crucial truth that I've learned in my almost 40 years in publishing. If we're not innovating, we are dying. We need to be constantly innovating. We need to be creating. We need to be welcoming the future. If we're not innovating, we're dying. Some of us are fortunate to have great backlist titles that do sell well year after year. But if we disregard the dynamic and shifting needs of our readers, sooner or later, even those most solid classics will reach their saturation point. Let me ask you, how dependent are you on your backlist? How dependent are you on books that sell well, but were published originally 20 years ago, 30 years ago? What percentage of your income comes from titles released in the past 12 months? These numbers should significantly influence how you think about the future and plan for lasting impact. So how do we understand our mission in today's context? The changing landscape. When Mundo Cristão was started 60 years ago, Brazil's Christian publishing market was very small. The evangelical population of the country in the mid-60s when we were founded was less than 3%. Today, Mundo Cristão is one of the leading Christian publishers in a vibrant market made up of more than 60 million evangelicals, or 30% of the population. So during our existence, the evangelical population of Brazil has gone from 3% to 30, some would say 35%. And it didn't happen by accident. I mean, becoming a leading Christian publishing house within this environment didn't happen by accident, because we made a conscious decision at the beginning to engage all of society, not just the church. People say that we have the opportunity of reaching out beyond the church because of the nature of the written word and the published word. And I think that if we have that opportunity, we also have that responsibility. So engage all of society, not only the church. Many years ago, we decided and realized that our books could be taken to the broader marketplace. It wasn't easy to break out of the Christian ghetto. I remember the first time that I took some books to a buyer from a large secular chain in São Paulo, and I was quickly escorted out when they realized that my books were Christian books. Zero interest at all. But we kept persisting, and later we became the first evangelical publisher in Brazil to break through to the secular market. And today, almost half of our books are sold in the secular market in Brazil. So we made this decision As we made this decision, we had to also make sure that we are serving our primary readership, the church, with useful, delightful, transformational products, books that truly reach their intended audience. And a powerful reason for every one of us here to insist on lasting impact is the importance of our service to the church. Book publishers are a precious resource to the church. Your expertise, every one of you here, your expertise strengthens the body of Christ in your country. And then there was the decision to participate in the global conversation involving the established Western church by translating their authors and developing some of our own. Today, 2024, it's still much more likely for a non-US Christian publisher to license and translate an American author than it is for an American publisher to translate books from abroad. And as the geopolitical center of Christianity continues its shift southward, perhaps this will change. Another part of the formula that was important for us was reader-centric publishing. So understanding our readers and really paying attention to them has been crucial to any success that we have enjoyed. And here's how we stay connected. First of all, of course, regular social media engagement and monitoring. We were very, very heavily present in all of the social media, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, TikTok. There were a few local ones in Brazil. It's also important for us to maintain close relationships with bookstores, both Christian and secular, who provide direct feedback from readers and leaders. We have a full-time employee on our staff who all she does is visit secular bookstores all week long within the greater São Paulo area. Her name is Luciana. She's our merchandising rep. She goes in, establishes relationships, makes sure that our books are being properly displayed, and gets feedback from the booksellers on what the readers are preferring, what books are being looked for in their venues. Also, the importance of careful analysis of reading trends and market data. What kind of market data do you have available in your country where you can tell what is selling? Is there a top 10 bestsellers list? Is there access to other kind of industry data? In Brazil, we're fortunate we have Nielsen BookScan that has just started in Brazil 2-3 years ago. So we can see what is succeeding, what's selling out of the bookstores across the country. And our competitors, it's important because we can see what other publishers are doing as well. We can see what is successful for our competitors, and they can alert us to what is possible. So as we see one of their titles climbing the charts, we can determine that we can observe perhaps a trend beginning to gel, to come together. One absolutely phenomenal example from publishing in Brazil the last couple of years has been a devotional book. The #1 best-selling book in Brazil today is a 365 entry devotional book by an evangelical pastor. It sells better than any fiction title, any non-fiction title, anything brought in from abroad, anything published locally. The #1 best-selling book in Brazil, period, is a devotional book. Over the last 3 years, it's sold over 5 million copies. It's a phenomenon, and of course, as we see this, all kinds of lights start going off. What can we do? How can we complement this? What is the market telling us? What are our readers telling us about what they want? The importance of authentic empathy with our readers' needs and challenges. Our readers are not only a market, they're human beings, they're Christians, there are people seeking the Lord. This is something that we school our entire staff on all the time. We need to be listening to them in the most careful ways. In order to be fully accessible to our readers, we also know that our books need to be available as e-books and audiobooks as well. So how do we build for impact? There are a number of ways of looking at this, and we start off with the readers, of course, but then also with content strategy. So our strategy for the content that we publish balances several key elements. In the first place, even though I have perhaps minimized a few seconds ago the importance of backlist titles, they are very important. I don't think that they should be the whole picture for a publishing house, but backlist titles are important. From the early days of our publishing house, we have published Bibles. Today we still carry basic text Bibles as well as study and devotional Bibles. There will always be a market for print and digital Bibles. There are most important backlist products. There are always new ways to repackage Bibles for new audiences, reconfigure them for different demographics, new ways to print and bind them, and sync them with new print technology developments, new ways to introduce them to new audiences. For example, some of you may be aware of the app that Tyndale has developed for the NLT called the Filament. It's an app that enables you to open the page of your Bible, focus your app on the page number, and on your cell phone, you get full study notes, reflection, videos, interactive maps. So we're in the process of adapting that tool for the NVT translation in Portuguese. We're just a couple of weeks away from launching it. And also the importance of regularly updating classic titles to maintain relevance. For example, for many years we published the Portuguese language translation of Gary Chapman's 5 Love Languages, the perennial international bestseller. We've sold more than 2 million copies of that book in Portuguese in Brazil. And we also regularly publish classics from the past, from the distant past, investing in new translations of the great books on Christian spirituality that are now in public domain. Our next release is a new translation of Blaise Pascal's Essays. Another part of our content strategy, just as or probably more important, is in this area of new authors, innovation and new voices. MAI has always highlighted and emphasized the fundamental value of locally authored books. In the past, we used to publish mostly translations of books by American and UK authors, but today most of our books, above 50%, are written locally in Brazil by local authors. This was impossible until we developed a highly skilled and productive team of editors who could guide our authors and finalize good manuscripts. Our editorial manager, Daniel Faria, is here in the audience somewhere. There he is. It's his first presence here with us at LittWorld. And his work at Mundo Cristão has attracted authors from across Brazil and Portugal as well. As you pivot to more promising genres of books, don't lose sight of your mission. You know, it's easy to focus on the opportunities and sort of lose track or lose sight of why you do what you do. Earlier I mentioned the recent success of our young adult fiction. Some of it's very much tied to current trends in the culture. For example, 2 of the titles, and there have been about 10 or 11 over the last 10 years, over the last year, 12 months. Some of them are linked to this K-drama niche. I don't know if you're into that, or if you've heard about that, or if you're addicted to any of that. But 2 of the titles that we published are in this K-drama niche, featuring interaction between Brazilian and South Korean characters, and set in a context that's familiar to fans of Korean culture. But each of these titles features not only a dramatic storyline, a romantic storyline, but a natural Christian worldview that's relevant to the plot and characters, not because of a superimposed moral framework, nor because of any thinly disguised prosperity theology, but because faith in Christ is unabashedly central to the narrative, even though it's presented subtly and implicitly. If you're interested, ask Danielle about how we work with our authors to achieve this. What we have discovered at Mundo Cristão is that a novel for 14-year-old girls can be as transformational as the latest NT Wright thesis. So I would say actively search for diverse authors and perspectives. We keep an eye on leaders with a growing social media following, Christian influencers with a solid message on a solid base, leaders who are recommended to us by some of our more established authors. Scan your horizons, scan your cultural horizons for an idea whose time has perhaps come. Will you recognize it? I found it important to visit bookstores regularly to keep aware of what's happening on the bestseller lists. And if possible, develop prophetic books that can challenge the status quo. Don't be afraid to step out once in a while and escape from the comforts of safety, of doctrinal safety sometimes. A couple of books that we published over the last year: Igrejas que Silenciam Mulheres, Churches That Silence Women. Really interesting book on the experience of women within the church in Brazil. And another book that we published is Quem tem medo dos evangélicos, which means who's afraid of the evangelicals. And this growth in Brazil is kind of scary to the rest of Brazilian society. So we've written a book that addresses that. And as you develop your own content strategy, I encourage you, and one of the things that we've managed to do successfully so far is to avoid political and theological extremes. We've been able to keep that noble middle road because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or what these extremes are going to translate into. These extremes can alienate significant parts of your readership. And we can't discuss effective publishing without insisting on excellence in design as well. So shout out to all of you designers in the crowd. Excellence in the area of design and book production signals that care has most likely been taken with editorial quality and development as well. So a very well-designed book that signals to the reader that the chances are pretty good that the content as well has received that same kind of attention. We found that in negotiating with booksellers, there's no substitute for compelling editorial quality, great design, and a readily identifiable audience. Finally, and this, I was glad to see that this is on the roster for this LittWorld. It's going to be talked about. Finally, I would say develop a policy for use of artificial intelligence within your publishing houses. This is sweeping the world right now. And remember that whatever you decide today, you're probably going to have to review and revisit in 6 months' time because things are changing so quickly. AI will radically alter important parts of what we do. There is no question about it. Many of us are shocked at what it can do. I was talking with a colleague of mine, a friend of mine who lives in Sweden, and he gave one of these AIs a load of 15-line prompts for a short story. And within 2 seconds, a 15-page short story was presented with great plot characteristics, great characterization, great anticlimax, a fully formed short story within two or 3 seconds. We're shocked at what it can do, but we need to learn what it can't do. And it doesn't need to be a threat. It need not be a threat. And the most innovative amongst us here will positively exploit its best features. It's here to stay. Let's learn how to make it work for us. When we talk about building for impact, there's no way to ignore the very key element of people and partnerships. First of all, within our own teams, we need to hire the most talented and self-motivated individuals that we can find, because there's nothing more important than bringing on the best people you can. Creating a corporate culture where disagreement is welcomed. This is sometimes uncomfortable for me. Sometimes I'll be sitting in a publications committee meeting where we're making decisions about new product acquisitions, and I'll give my opinion, and a junior salesperson who's been on staff for just 6 months will disagree with me. And they have to realize that that is okay. And sometimes the best decisions come out of that kind of conflict, that kind of disagreement. If you can create a corporate environment where people feel free to flourish, to express their own opinions, welcome disagreement. Where productivity is rewarded and where innovation is encouraged. Learn also to balance remote and in-office work effectively. A lot of our organizations are in the midst of this right now, including MAI, balancing remote and face-to-face or in present. How do you do that effectively? We have one of our managers responsible for facilities and for logistics who lives in Portugal. And so you walk into his office in Brazil, there's a big screen there, and he's sitting there giving instructions to his employees, and everything goes about as normal, but he's not in Sao Paulo, he's in Braga, Portugal. Why not? I mean, it works very well. The only caveat, of course, is making sure that you feed and nurture that positive corporate culture that sometimes only face-to-face enables you to accomplish. And learn how to celebrate. I'm a bit of an introvert, and so I have trouble knowing how to celebrate. So I have to have people around me that do it well, because if we meet a huge sales goal, my inclination is just to say, yeah, good job, guys. Now let's on to the next month. They said, wait, let's all go out to a restaurant. Let's blow up the balloons. Let's play the music and let's celebrate this. And so that's important. People need to feel that those achievements are celebrated. And that's part of bringing together a talented group of people. And of course, when we're talking about people within the publishing process, the most important people of all that we have are our authors. I see Dan Balo sitting over here. He's a guy who is author-centric and everything that he does, and we need to be more author-centric in what we do as well. We need to develop close personal relationships with authors throughout the process. We need to negotiate fair contracts, openly discuss cover art and marketing plans with them, as uncomfortable as that can be. We need to pay their royalties on time. We need to help them develop their own social media presence and their presence on the national speaking circuit. We should not forget that our job is to intermediate the relationship between authors and readers. That's what we do best. We are at our best when we're serving both of those groups very well. And we need to focus on diverse voices and perspectives. I'm really glad to see InterVarsity is here. It's one of the most innovative, I don't know where Jerome is, but InterVarsity has become one of the most innovative Christian publishers in the United States because of the risks it has taken and the investments that it's made in diverse voices and perspectives. Who are the minority voices within your context? Within your country itself, who are the minority voices? Who is able to challenge the establishment? Who can provide an alternative viewpoint that may help readers seek growth and maturity and transformation? So we, in our editorial department at Mundo Cristão, and in the marketing and sales department as well, we discuss how we can be more proactive in building these long-term relationships with authors. And we've decided that we can deepen this project, this process, by serving our authors with a long record of promises kept, excellence in all phases of work, and a true sense of partnership, and furthering the causes that we share with them. One of the examples that I could bring up, and Daniel, I could invite him up and he could speak in my place, but is the close relationship that we've developed with these 4 authors who wrote this first young adult fiction novel. As a result of that close relationship, now each one of the 4 has written their own books on a solo basis. They've produced a second volume of the first book, and it's led to further books by other writers that are fans of these writers, and away it goes. So as we build our impact through people and through content, through a relationship with readers and authors, how do we keep all of this sustainable? How can we continue doing what we do? And I need to start off by talking about the absolute importance of financial health as ministry. Financial health is not only a complement to ministry, it is a ministry. The ability to manage finances well within your publishing environment is a ministry. It's important as we look at the subject of lasting impact. It's about sustainability for mission. We learned this during Brazil's many economic crises, which forced many magazine and book publishers to close down. So the key principles that we walk away with when we look at the importance of financial management to what we all do is that all decisions must reflect mission while maintaining profitability. So in our acquisitions meetings, where we're talking about new books that need to be published next year or the year after that, a part of that discussion always has to do with maintaining profitability and how can we reflect our mission? Do we have a book that is great but there's not going to be much of an audience for it? What can we change about that? Can we bring in another author? Can we make it a very visual experience for the reader? What can we do in order to increase the likelihood of good sales and higher profitability? That's the only way that we can continue on. In our case, we don't raise funds outside of what we do. Our revenue is the only source of funds for our publishing house, so we have to do that. Financial health enables ministry survival and expansion. It seems like a boring subject to many of us, It seems like this is the fun stuff and that's the back office stuff that nobody wants to think about very much. We need to flip that around, because without that, we don't have the fun stuff. Innovation also requires financial flexibility. And what we've learned is that all leadership at your publishing house needs to be actively involved in financial strategy, not just the CFO, and not just the CFO staff. In addition to financial metrics, we also track dozens of other key performance indices, everything from new title revenue contribution, revenue per employee, and the relative value of inventory. And I'm glad to see that Scott Matthews, who is here from Tyndale, is going to be doing one of the seminars about this subject. There may be another one or two. I would encourage you to consider going to that and to complement whatever information you have about that in the best way possible, because of the absolute essential importance of that to what we do on the creative side. The entire management team at our publishing house is conversant on these metrics. Once a month we all get together, everybody, all the managers, and spend an hour and a half looking at finances. The entire management team is conversant, and they know the ways in which their departments can effectively contribute to long-term survival. We can't talk about lasting impact without talking about financial sustainability. Leadership for the long term. In addition to finances, we need to look at the leadership structures within our publishing houses. Sustainable impact requires sustainable leadership. As leaders in publishing, I am convinced that we need to cultivate broad and eclectic interests that connect us to the worlds of our readers. So we're not much good to them if all we're interested in is publishing in books. We need to develop eclectic interests outside of our worlds. These interests can connect us to the worlds of our readers. They can enable us to recognize points of relevance. They can enhance our position as protagonists on the cultural scene. What more do we wish for publishing houses? To be considered a serious player in the culture. Within the church culture, certainly, but within the broader culture, why not? Do you know what the #1 hit song is in your country this morning? Who are people listening to in the Czech Republic this morning? What #1 hit song has just hit Bangkok? Do you know who the top 5 influencers are in your country today? Who are people listening to? Who are 17-year-olds listening to this morning? Who are 24-year-olds paying attention to? What is the #1 best-selling book in your country? You should at least know that, right? And what is the latest slang that the teenagers are using in your country? Do you know who the top online retailer is in your country? Is it Amazon? Does Amazon even exist in your country? If not, who is it? And it's those sorts of not only business-related, but culture-related interests that link us to readers and that prepare us to serve our readers better and better. I would say also, as a leader, stay open to revolutionary change and dissonant voices. I mentioned this before, I'm going to repeat it again. Do you always wait until a new idea becomes safe before investing in it? We all know of publishing houses that produce very controversial, polemical, new books that then, as they catch on, other publishing houses find ways to piggyback on that success. So what about you in your situation? You always wait until a new idea becomes safe before investing in it, or are you the pioneer? Why not try spearheading a new approach, a risky new interpretation whose time just might have come? When we look at leadership also, there's the absolutely important element of developing future leaders within your organization. This is the greatest test of your own leadership. Can you identify and equip your leaders for success? Can you selflessly set them up for greater heights than you ever achieved yourself? That's difficult to do, to see somebody who you're training become more successful than you ever were. But it's also the greatest test of your own leadership. What about building intentional succession plans? That's a difficult one. And sharing expertise with others. How intentional are you about serving those who aren't as far along as you with the benefits of your accumulated knowledge? Can you share your insights even with a competitor, another Christian publishing house in your environment? This is the spirit of cooperation that MAI has always been about, right from the very beginning. So, as we conclude, I'd like to quote Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I can't think of a better motto for a Christian publishing house. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's what books help us do, renew our minds. And to reach transformation as a result of the renewal that comes about through new insight, through knowledge, through new knowledge, through exposure to the Scripture. As Christian publishers, we are in the business of transformation. We're not in the business of preserving the past. We are in the business of transformation. Remember your own transformation through books. I know that if we would take a few minutes to ask you, we would hear several stories about books that have been transformational in your own lives. Books that helped you become a Christian. Books that helped you realize that God does in fact exist. Books that helped you make a career choice or a relationship choice. Remember that transformation that happened in your life because of a book that you read. At the beginning of our session today, Dan quoted C.S. Lewis. And that book, The Weight of Glory, is one of my favorites. One of my favorites. And he goes on in that same essay to talk about the pursuit of beauty and truth in the midst of terrible circumstances. In the midst of war itself, the pursuit of truth and beauty. Absolutely fantastic. That's what we want for our readers, that kind of transformation. And our impact isn't measured only in sales figures, but much more importantly in transformed lives. How do you measure your impact within your context? Sales are just a part of it. In our case, we look at all kinds of things, like social media engagement, like authors who are invited to speak at conferences, or who are interviewed in the media or in podcasts. We look for themes that were launched and introduced through our books that suddenly become a part of the national agenda. And a book in the secular market that has been a runaway bestseller in not only the United States, but in many other countries as well, has been that book by Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Mind. I'm sure some of you have seen it. It's a book about the effect of screens on young minds in the educational process, and how that one book and the transformation that's being caused by people getting together discussing that, departments of education getting together discussing the findings that are in that. It's just amazing. In the case of Brazil, where a Brazilian Portuguese language copy of this book has already been published, as of January 2025, no more cell phones in the classrooms. A lot of people credit it to the kind of discussions that this book began to elicit from educators and others in Brazilian society. How many of your books have had that kind of an impact in your society, on the church itself? Well, seek not only to publish books, but to enable them to powerfully contribute to progress and understanding within the church and society. So I'd like to close with just 3 challenges. And I'm sorry I didn't prepare a PowerPoint to make it easier for you, but if anybody's interested, I can send them a copy of this later. 3 closing challenges. Commit to innovation, especially if you're in a publishing house that's been around for a while, for 20 years, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Commit to innovation while staying true to your mission. It's not that hard to do. Readers change. Authors change. Are you changing also? How? Discuss this at the highest levels of leadership in your organization. The second challenge, listen deeply to your readers. The reason we exist is to link authors and readers. Become friends with your readers. Listen empathically to your readers. Sense where their anxieties are. What do they need? Show you care by addressing their deepest anxieties. Connect with as many individual readers, not just groups, not just big demographic groups, but individual readers. Connect with as many individual readers as possible and listen as carefully as you can. How can your mission respond to those needs? And finally, build for sustainable impact. Honor the Lord in all you do, certainly. Shift the spotlight away from yourself. Difficult to do. When I was first hired at Tyndale House, back in the early 80s, Virginia Muir, who was one of the very first editors there, told me as I was being ushered into my new job, she said, remember, the spotlight is never going to be on you, it's always going to be on the authors. I've never forgotten that, and I think she was absolutely right with that. Shift the spotlight away from yourself and toward your authors and readers. Allow them to shine and build the best infrastructure you can in order to ensure that that light stays on. The written word remains one of God's chosen methods for transformation. Let's steward this responsibility well by publishing for lasting impact. Thank you.